a mountain of scraps. I have a lot of fabric and I make a lot of things, and I keep tiny bits of fabric for not very good reason. So what I'm going to do is sort it all out, and I have here the templates for things that I make. I have bedding template, so they're pillows for bedding. That's the apron template that we saw in one of the magazines. That's the cushion template for cushions that I actually sell sometimes. There's a top quilt. There's a large bedspread with a fold. I'm not to get it on there. There's a throw. And then there are kind of things for real life people. A zip up bag template that I make. A purse that I make. And another purse that I make. So I've got loads of zips, and I've also somewhere there's a heart template for lavender bags. So I'm going to sort my fabric according to what I possibly think it could make out of these templates, and then have a go at making some of these to get rid of these scraps, whilst I have the 6-hour wait for the safer to dry. Well, the mountain has now been sorted. A lot of it has ended up in the recycling, to be honest, because there were bits that were sort of 1-2 centimetres square, if that, and life's a bit short for that, isn't it, really? What else have I done? I did find some really nice bits of Halloween fabric and autumn fabric at the bottom, so I've sorted those. And what I will do now is I will make one of each thing on here to show you what has become of these bits, and I will kind of bag them up, label the bags with the template in them, and gradually work my way through them. Once I get going, I can sew pretty quick, so I should be able to churn out quite a few little bits and pieces within quite a short time, and put the end result on this video. But that was an hour of my life, and I think in future small scraps are going straight in the bin. Right, so I'm going to start by making some Christmas cushions here, and what I'm doing is what is called, I think in quilting terms, fussy cutting. So for the front, obviously that is much too big for a doll's house scale, but these little holly leaves are about the right scale, I think. So what I want to do is try and get a cushion with a holly leaf in the middle of it. So I make these little templates with this, I think is about probably 3.5, between 3.2 and 3.5. And then turn the fabric over, position your little window so that you've got your motif in the middle, or wherever you want your motif, and then draw around it. And that, what you're drawing there is your sewing line, not your cutting line. That is something to remember when you cut it out. And I think I'll try and get, there's a few here. When you're making cushions, I just think it's quite nice to try and make a pair if you can. At least. Can I get one out of that? Trouble with that is you're going to get his boot in it, aren't you? So I think no is the answer to that. What I'll do is I can use that as the back, possibly. If it doesn't work out, I'll use it as the back of a cushion. Oh, there's little robin. It's going to look a bit weird because it's on a hand. Is there anywhere I can get another piece of fabric to make the back? I'll tell you what, I'll use that robin, and then it will kind of be like a double-sided cushion. So I've got 4 squares. Then I'll cut. I'll leave myself quite a generous margin around each one. The bigger the margin you leave, the easier it will be to sew. So if you're not used to sewing, leave yourself a big margin. I'm pretty adept at sewing these things now. So I tend to, I can leave a smaller margin than that. Now that is going to be difficult to make that into the back. I'm going to have to line that up, and I'm just going to see. I fold that. Okay, that's quite nice as a front. I'm going to keep that as a front. Yeah, there it is. I don't know if you can hear, but out there we have seagulls nesting on one of my neighbour's roofs, and they make such a racket. So that is what that strange squawking noise is, if you can hear it. There, so I'm going to bin this before I'm tempted to put it somewhere. And then I'm going to find a piece of fabric for the backing of those. Before I take it to the sewing machine, what I will do is think about which orientation I want. So I reckon that that's going to be the bottom. And then the bottom of the cushion, mark a bit like that. So I don't know how much that is. That is, it's about 1/2 centimetre, isn't it? It's not crucial, but you just need to leave, that is going to be the bit that you don't sew, so that you can turn the cushion the right way out. So if you just mark it up, and now you know that you're going to sew all the way around here and stop there. And I'm going to attempt to show you on my sewing machine. I hope this isn't too dark. I had to turn the overhead light off because the light was kind of reflecting on the metal of the sewing machine, and the glare was meaning that there was no picture at all. So I do apologise for the quality of this video. I'm going to start sewing there where that first mark is. So I just need to put that down there. My stitch length is short, it's 1.5, and I've turned my needle position so that it stops in the down position, if you can do that on your machine. It's not essential, but it's just easier for when you get to the corners. I'm using white thread because that's what I've got. If you don't have a huge selection of threads, I wouldn't worry. Grey works for a lot of things, and so does ecru. I've usually got grey and ecru, like kind of off-white, in stock. Apparently rose is another colour that can work with a lot of fabrics. But basically, as long as you're not sewing a white fabric with a black thread, I wouldn't be too bothered about matching the thread to the fabric for this project. So I'm just going to sew to that first. Sew a little bit and then go back to secure it. You might have to hand turn it to get yourself so that you're actually on that corner, and then turn and go this way. And again, turn it to get to that corner. So I'm in the last bit now, and I'm going to sew until I get to that mark. And then stop, and then back. And that is the sewing bit done. As you can see, I've got a very, very small stitch, 1.5, and I've gone all the way around with the gap in the middle. Now I'm going to trim these threads off. Yeah, and then I'm going to trim by cutting diagonally across where the corners are, as close to the stitching as I can without nicking them. Try and get a little bit closer than that. These scissors are terrible. I don't know where I picked these up for. And I'll do that on each corner. And then I'm going to trim quite close to the stitch line, about like that, on all the sides apart from the bottom. That corner's got a bit. And then the bottom, I go in up to that line, and then I give myself a little bit more to play with there. And then the other side, I go in like that. So you end up with something that looks a bit like that. Doesn't matter if it's not even, because you're just going to turn it the other way around anyway. But obviously try and get it as neat as you can. And then I'm going to get a cocktail stick and just nick the end off. Or you can use a blunt darning needle or a kind of blunt pair of scissors. Turn it the right way around. And poke the ends out with your blunt cocktail stick. So you've got not ends, corners. Oh, now that sometimes happens if you're not careful. Sometimes it's a disaster and you can't save it, because it means you've got a hole in your cushion, and sometimes what it just means is that you've gone through a thread, and you can snip that off with a sharp pair of scissors, and I think that's what's probably happened there. So I will try not to make it worse by doing that. Just tease that out a bit more gently, and then let's see, I think I can probably mend that. But yeah, it's about being careful. This is quite an open weave, this holly fabric. So if you're starting out, it's best to use quite a close weave cotton, because that's less likely to happen. Right, and then you need to kind of fold this bit here in, sort of prod it in, and it kind of naturally wants to do that because you've sewn a little bit away along. Don't worry about that, we'll snip that off. Sometimes it does unravel a bit as you're turning it, even though you've backstitched, but it's not a problem. Right, so there is our cushion as it stands, and I'm just going to snip that end with a decent pair of scissors. Snip that bit off there. the other thing you could do is to turn it back and then just sew down there a little bit. So you're cutting that bit where you've poked a little hole through into the seam allowance. But I think that's not too bad. Right, now you need to press it. So I'm going to go and press it and then I'll come back to you. One pressed cushion with a slightly dodgy corner there. So open the bottom, and I fill mine with rice. You can use lentils, you could just stuff it with all new stuffing. I use rice because I make a lot of cushions to sell actually, and it's cheap and it works well. It just gives them a kind of slight weight and enables them to be arranged like proper cushions. They don't sort of bounce off the chair like stuffing does. Some people use little glass beads, but I've been making them with rice for many years and it's been fine. I've got some that I've made years ago. Obviously you don't want to get them wet, but nobody's complained that anything's gone wrong with them, and I've been selling them for a long time. Well, just so yeah, that's that done. Don't stuff the rice in too much. I leave it so I've got a kind of, you can see that, quite a bit there to play with. And then it's gluing time. I just use Aleen's tacky glue, and I always glue along the front there. I'll try and get quite a lot in the corner bits where the sewing stops, especially if you've got kind of a bit that's a bit unravelling like I have there, and then pull it with your fingers and line it up. Sometimes you get a bit of rice caught in the seam, so just squidge that out the way. Check that it's straight along the bottom as much as you can, and then leave it to dry for a bit, and then you can kind of neaten up any loose bits that might be edges and things that might be floating about, and you have a cushion. Right, I should carry on with my pile, and obviously the other things that I've got here, the pillows, you're making exactly the same way. I'll put the measurements for my pillows in the notes for this video, but no, how long is a piece of string? You can see how I've made my templates. I've just used squared paper that I've stuck onto bits of cereal box, or soap box, that one is, and then so that I've got something easy that's easy to draw around. That's one piece of scrap turned into something useful anyway. Only about 495 million pieces left to go. The end result of picking up little bits of scraps and fussy cutting them, a lot of doll's house cushions. What I would say is, I can't see one, occasionally when you've glued it you get this kind of bit along the bottom, and you can just sort of, it's just where the glue has stuck to the fabric too much. So if you gently tease this apart, you can get rid of that and kind of manipulate it and squidge it a bit, pull it apart a little bit and then do that, and then it's gone. You also get little tiny bits of threads on some, there's one tiny bit of thread there, and you just nip those off with a pair of scissors and they're fine. There's the one I was going to use for the back, but he's quite nice, isn't he, that little robin? Which is the one with the dodgy corner? You see, there's two, and there was Oh, there, that's one with a dudley corner, but you couldn't tell. On the sofa or a bed at Christmas, they'll look lovely. So that is how you make cushions from scraps. I really like this one with the Kisses Flowers Home written on it. I'm getting ready to put a load of more things on Vinted, so I think some of these will go on Vinted eventually, and I will let you know when that happens. What I am trying to do at the moment is make a Doll's House magazine with hopefully with the help of a friend who's also a journalist, a miniaturist. There are no Doll's House print Doll's House magazines in the UK at the moment, so I have taken it upon myself to attempt to revive and make a Doll's House magazine. So I'm going to have to raise a bit of capital in order to do that, which means selling some of my miniatures. So these will be up for sale probably at the end of July, I think, in the hope of raising some capital and putting it towards the magazine. So again, I'll let you know when that happens, and thanks very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. I will be making other things with the rest of the scraps, as well as carrying on with the Del Prado house project. Bye for now.